Welcome to the Journey to Prosperity for All, a program where we look at and reflect on the activities of the PPPC government in office for the last 2 years. With me for this discussion, I have the Minister of Natural Resources, Minister Vickram Bharrat. Minister Bharrat, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here too.
Minister, as we start our conversation, what was the Ministry of Natural Resources or the sector of natural resources like upon your assumption of office in 2020?
All right, let me say I'm happy to be a part of this program so that we can highlight the achievements of the PVP Civic administration over the last 2 years in government. But having said that, permit me from the onset to commend and to congratulate His Excellency President Irfan Ali, Prime Minister Mr. Mark Phillips, Brigadier Retired Mr. Mark Phillips, and also Vice President Dr. Bharat Jagdeo for their strong, bold, decisive leadership in guiding us at the cabinet level, in government at the technical level. Their leadership has really made a difference over the last 2 years. And we are seeing the transformation that is taking place in Guyana is as a direct result of policy decisions, programs, and the implementation of promises that we made in our manifesto. And as President Ali said, we are surpassing our targets to date.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that from the onset because I think that is a big contributory factor to the success of our government over the last 2 years. Leadership management is key to any country, any organization. The Ministry of Natural Resources, as you know, is one of the key ministries. We manage the productive sectors basically. Mining, the new oil and gas sector. Of course, the oil and gas sector is the biggest contributor to our GDP, mining being the second highest contributor to our GDP, and forestry, of course. When we took over government in August 2020, I think everyone in Guyana knows the story of the Guyana Forestry Commission. Was basically bankrupt. Staff weren't paid for 2 to 3 months. Utility bills were owed. NIS, GPL, insurance was owed for staff. The commission was in a very terrible state. Poor monitoring, illegal logging. In the mining sector, there was rampant illegal mining too. So the revenue from those sectors were not flowing directly into the correct agency or into government coffers so it could be spent on taxpayers. In the oil and gas sector, there was so much pomp and celebration about forest oil, which we are happy about. But there was no regulatory framework, there was no architecture built out to monitor and to regulate the oil and gas sector as it should have been. When we took government, of course, we have the local content legislation now, and we see that as a big achievement in the oil and gas sector for a small developing country like Guyana, probably one of the newest oil-producing nation in the world, and one of the few countries in the world that have actually taken that bold step to move from a policy to legislation. If you look at countries, oil-producing countries in the world, most of them would probably have a local content policy. But we took that step and we made a promise that we are going to ensure that there is a local content legislation. Today I'm proud to say that we have a functional local content secretariat in place with a director and staff that is monitoring local content in Guyana, that is benefits for Guyanese, whether it's direct employment or whether it's Guyanese businesses being able to supply goods and services to the tier 1, tier 2 contractors and the licensee in the oil and gas sector. And that has bring tremendous opportunities to Guyanese and Guyanese businesses. So that, I would say, is one of the key achievements for our administration, especially the Ministry of Natural Resources in the oil and gas sector, because we made a promise when we campaigned in 2020 that we are going to manage the oil and gas sector, one, to ensure that there is great transparency and accountability, which is key, because we know that oil and gas can be a curse or it can be a blessing to a country. depending on how well it is managed, depending on the framework that you have in place to manage the sector. And that is why we made a promise that we are going to ensure that we manage the sector in a way that we are accountable to the people of Guyana and in a transparent manner. And hence, the amendments to the Natural Resources Fund Act. Right? Now it is clear, every Guyanese know how much money will flow from the Natural Resource Fund into the Consolidated Fund and into the budget, which must be approved by Parliament before any spending can take place. Everyone knows how much money flows into the fund. Every year it is gazetted. Every year people can just, any Guyanese or anyone in the world can just add down and see the total revenue received from the oil and gas sector. And they can also see how much was transferred into the Consolidated Fund, approved in Parliament and spent also. So that is the kind of transparency and accountability that we promise. Secondly, we promise that we're going to manage the sector in a way that every single Guyanese will benefit from this new revenue stream that is coming to our country. And we have started to do that. Right now, as we speak, over $5-6 billion is being distributed in cash grant to our school children throughout the entire country, be it public school or be it private school. Over 200,000 children in this country is benefiting from $30,000 each. That's $25,000 cash grant, $5,000 uniform voucher or allowance for uniform. So every school child in this country is benefiting right now as we speak from $30,000 each. And that is just one way or one example as to how the revenue is being used to benefit every single Guyanese. Added to that, when we realize that the cost of living is going up, mainly due to the war between Ukraine and Russia, maybe due to the economic impact of COVID, the high shipping costs, the shortages of goods internationally, we realize that our government will have to take certain measures, and we have seen those measures. And one such measure is the removal of tax on fuel. We are probably one of the only country in the world that there is no tax, none at all, on fuel. And it is because we are having revenue now from oil and gas that we can manage to sustain the development and the economy in the manner in which we're doing. Without that, it would have been difficult, of course. So these are, I'm just giving a few examples just to show, of course, healthcare, education, infrastructure. These are developments that will benefit the entire population. The Gold Scholarship, and there's so much more. The relief that is being given to the hinterland communities right now, 25,000 for every household in the hinterland riverine community. These are benefits that are being distributed to every single Guyanese so that they can see some kind of benefit coming towards them and they can enjoy a better life.
Minister, as we continue the conversation on what is happening in the natural resources sector, one popular publication and many other publications have dubbed the gas to energy plant as the single most transformational project in Guyana. How do you view this statement, and what benefits can Guyanese see both in the long and in the short term?
I fully agree with that statement that the gas to energy project will be the most transformational project in the history of our country to date. Why I say this? Our major problem in Guyana, and one of the major hindrance to investment and to moving to the value-added products as we should, has been the cost of power generation and the reliability of power supply to consumers as well too. The gas to energy project will seek to address this. Now, I've been to quite a few international forums, and quite honestly, now a lot of focus is on Guyana. Now people are learning a lot more about Guyana, and often as Minister of Natural Resources, I'm asked, why is it that Guyana is still a poor country when you have so many natural resources? You have a big agriculture sector, and you have so much potential for ecotourism and other areas that could actually bring more development to your country. And the simple question to that, besides from our political history, the 64 to 92 period when we were a dictatorship, and we all know what happened during that period. But added to that, I would say it is because we have never actually ventured into value-added downstream processing. We have always been exporting our raw materials. For example, in my sector, we export logs, and then we'll buy back the wood products, like what we're sitting on right now. We export our raw gold and is refined elsewhere. We export our bauxite, is refined elsewhere. And across all sectors has been happening. Agriculture is the same. We export our vegetables, our fruits, and then we buy back the processed um, products. So we have never really truly enjoyed or realized the true benefits of our natural resources that we possess in Guyana, mainly because of the high cost of energy, the high cost of energy. And we need to move towards manufacturing. I was even speaking with a few persons recently at a meeting, and I was jokingly saying to them that we don't even produce toothpick in Guyana. We import toothpick, a simple thing as toothpick that can be made right here in Guyana. We don't do that. We import it, and you know when we import products, we have to spend foreign currency. Right? It costs. Um, so we need to move towards manufacturing. We need to. President has been advocating tremendously at CARICOM and elsewhere for food security. So we need to start producing for ourselves. We need to start manufacturing for ourselves. And the gas to energy project will put us on the right path towards ensuring that happens in Guyana. By ensuring that we have cheap power, by now all Guyanese will know that this project will reduce the cost of electricity by more than 50%, or about 50% approximately. Right now, we're paying probably one of the highest costs of electricity in this hemisphere. It's close to maybe between 28 30 cents per kilowatt, compared to other countries where they produce at less than 10 cents per kilowatt. So we are not competitive when it comes to attracting certain type of investment because of that. So with the gas energy project, we will reduce that cost to half of what we're paying presently. So every Guyanese can expect that by the ending 2024, early 2025, that their, as we say in Guyana, the light bill or the electricity costs will be reduced by almost 50%. Added to that, it will be a reliable source of power supply. And for investment, for manufacturing, for industrial, even household, even commercial, you need reliable power. I have grown up in Borbies, and I've grown up in the age where we've gotten accustomed to saying blackouts. Right? I went to one country and I mentioned blackouts, and they thought somebody fainted. But in Guyana, we know what blackout is. Going to school, we study with kerosene lamp and flambeaux, as we used to call it in Borbies. So we know we went through that. So it is time that we move past that. We're a developing country now, and this project would ensure that there is a reliable supply of electricity to our people, to our businesses. Added to that, it's cheaper, it's more reliable, and it's cleaner, because in the whole context of climate change, the conversation that we're having around the world now in terms of cutting emission and climate change, mind you, Guyana is probably one of the few, it is, not probably, but it is one of the few countries in the world that we are carbon neutral, or we are, as a matter of fact, we're in the negative. Many countries around the world are now trying to reduce their emission, trying to get to carbon neutral. We are already carbon neutral and in negative. And we are moving towards even cutting our emission further. This project, the gas energy project, will cut our emission even further. I believe in terms of power generation, it will cut the emission by 70% in terms of power generation. Not totally, but from what we are emitting right now, generating power, that will be cut significantly. So, as I mentioned, it's cheaper power, reliable power, cleaner power in the whole context of climate change. The gas energy power plant will give us at least 250 megawatts net. We know that now our consumption in Guyana is below 150 megawatts. So there is enough power that will encourage manufacturing industrial activities. And that is why we would have selected the Wales development area, because the Wales development area, we have the land available there, and then we have access to the Demerara River, our deepest river in Guyana.
So, Minister, you mentioned the Wales facility that will be set up, and I wanted to ask you specifically about that. Setting up this facility in Wales, we know Wales has been largely dependent on sugar and other products and other activities in that area. What benefits can setting up this facility in that community bring for the residents of that area?
All right, so we would have selected that area for a number of reasons. You know, and I think we have seen in the media the amount of criticism that followed by our selection from that area. But we're not bothered because any area that was selected, the critics would have been on it. We kind of, we live in a society where we get accustomed to people just being negative all the time and people who are anti-development. So we have a job to do. We have a responsibility to the people of Guyana, and we are moving ahead with our task. Now we selected the Wales development area or the Wales area because of the fact that the APNU AFC has reduced those communities on the west bank of Demerara to a state where they can be considered as poor, deprived area, mainly because of the closure of the Wales sugar estate when they took office after 2015. 17, I think it's 1,800 persons. Direct jobs were lost. Indirectly, thousands, I would want to say, because there was a thriving market there. There are so many other small businesses that depended on the estate. So it's not only the workers who were working there directly. Added to that, the private cane farmers, the Canal 1, Canal 2 polder, the Wales area, that was one of the only area in the country at that time that we had private cultivation of sugarcane, and those farmers were selling the cane to the Wales estate. So they are out of a living now too, because after the closure of the estate, then their activity become redundant. So a number of people lost their jobs, a number of people, and in order to bring development to certain areas too, then you need to carry jobs or carry development to different areas. One is that we have, besides from having the workforce available, people who can be trained to work due to the closure of the estate. Secondly, the availability of land, right? Because it's not only about the power plant, but it's the complex, the manufacturing industrial park that will be built around the power plant. So you need land for that. Thirdly, the access to the Demerara River. We have direct access to the Demerara River, which, as we know, is one of the deepest river in Guyana. The other critical or the other comment we saw was about the Demerara Harbour Bridge and the inconvenience of passing going down to Wales. As you know, we signed a contract for a high-rise 4-lane new Demerara Harbour Bridge. So that will not be an issue because we knew that was part of our plan in selecting Wales. So we knew that the bridge will not be an obstacle for the movement of marine traffic in and out from the Wales development area, because that will be a big commercial, as I mentioned, manufacturing, industrial area. So obviously they would have a lot of movement of marine traffic, goods and services coming in and out of that area. So that is why, those are some of the reasons, a few of the reasons why we decided. And then you need to put, and quite honestly, you need to put the power plant closer to the bulk of the population. And Region 3 is one of the fastest growing regions in our country. Statistics will show you that in terms of population. Region 3 is one of the fastest growing, especially with the Parfit Harmony new scheme, the Tushin new scheme. I think Tushin new scheme is probably one of the biggest new scheme in the Caribbean as we speak now, because especially with the extension going on. Parfit not being far behind the Bell West housing scheme. And there are so many other new housing schemes in Region 3 that was established under the PP Civic administration when President Ali was Minister of Housing. So it is one of the fastest growing regions in terms of population and development, and it's also very close to Region 4, our most populated region, and East Bank, which is faster growing because of the new schemes. Diamond new scheme, also one of the biggest new scheme in the country too. So those are some of the reasons why we decided the Wales area will be the ideal area, away from the high density populated areas, because one of the areas suggested, by a number of studies that were done, was the Ogle area. And of course, you would agree with me that we cannot put a power plant in a prime residential area or close to an international airport. So that is why the Wales development area was selected.
So as we continue the conversation, Minister, on energy, and speaking specifically about the energy diversification that the government is currently ongoing, how does the gas to energy project play a role in the entire outlook of that energy diversification?
All right, so as everyone is familiar now with the Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030, the Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030 speaks directly towards our energy mix and in the direction in which we want to go as a country in terms of cutting emission and moving towards transitional renewable energy. The gas to energy project, of course, where we're transitioning from HFOs, diesel, into using gas to generate electricity, which will cut our emissions significantly, as I mentioned earlier, reduce our emissions significantly. And as you're aware too, we are moving towards developing the Milo Falls hydro project that's still on the table. That will produce close to 165 megawatts of power. So when you add that to the 250 megawatts of power, and then we're also working on solar farms in a number of areas, that's Scribo, Borbies, Region 10 area. Those solar farms will probably give us close to like 50 megawatts. There's some mini hydros that are being done right now, one in Kumu, one in Mokomoko, I think one in Region 8 as well too. So that will add to our energy mix. Besides from that, the government will be distributing solar panels, household units to every riverine Indian community, riverine hinterland community. That distribution will start as soon as the panels arrive in Guyana. That's a commitment that we've already made. So with that now, it will cut our emissions significantly. It will reduce our importation bill for HFO diesel. Based on the last figure I've seen from GEA, we are importing, I think, monthly 150 million US dollars in fuel just for power generation. So you can imagine how that will be cut significantly. And once you can cut the importation bill, it means more money is available for development in our country. More money is available to ensure that people have a more comfortable life, better facilities, better education, better health care. And that is the intention of our government. What the gas energy project will do, obviously, is reduce cost of living. Because once you're paying a cheaper rate for electricity, and we know that almost everything revolves around oil and gas, around power generation. Almost everything that we do on a daily basis revolves around power generation. So once we cut the cost of power, then cost of living in our country will drop significantly. Added to that, once we start producing, which we are pushing towards, because that's why, as mentioned, we selected the Wales development area. We have land available, we'll have cheap, reliable power available right there. We want people to invest in manufacturing. We want to become self-sufficient as a country. We want to become a hub for the Guyana Shield. We want to produce and supply to CARICOM. Right? So that is the trajectory, that is the vision that we have for Guyana. And once we do that, you will find that the cost of living will reduce significantly, because obviously when you start producing goods in your own country, one is that you create business opportunities, you create employment for people. Those businesses pay taxes to the government, so you have more revenue coming in for development. You have cheaper goods and services because you don't have to import anymore. You're manufacturing it right here, and more than likely we'll have some amount of raw materials right here in Guyana too. And fourthly, you save on foreign currency because you're not importing anymore. That's a savings by itself. So there are so many advantages towards moving towards value added manufacturing, producing in your own country as against the importing. And on the flip side, we can start exporting instead of importing. So that's another benefit too. Right? So that is the direction in which we're going, and we believe strongly that the gas to energy project will facilitate this vision that we have for our country, will be, as I may put it in Guyanese term, will be a game changer for Guyana, quite honestly.
Minister, let's take a brief look at the forestry sector. The forestry sector has been doing a tremendous job in growing and expanding itself. Give us a brief overview of what has happened in that sector over the last 2 years.
Well, I'm happy that we shift a little focus to forestry, because oil and gas has actually been the key focus. However, we have not put forestry or mining or any other traditional sector in the back burner. As a matter of fact, we are working towards incentivizing the other sectors and growing the non-oil economy, and forestry is one such sector. As I mentioned before, the state of the Forestry Commission when we took over, there weren't resources to basically monitor, to do basic monitoring of the forest. We would have changed that over the last 2 years. The Commission, I'm happy to say, is a much better position now. Even though it could have been better had it not been for the weather pattern that we've been experiencing over the last year or so. The massive flooding in July 2021. I think we've had rain for almost the entire year. And when we have this kind of weather pattern, it tells a lot, and it damages the infrastructure in the interior regions. You're probably seeing pictures with bridges and sections of the roadways being washed away because of the excessive rainfall. So that would have affected the mining and logging sector as well, agriculture as well too, to an extent. But nevertheless, I want to say, and I'm proud to say, that the forestry sector has been doing much better than before. The forestry sector has basically been sustaining itself. Our production has increased in 2022 by over, I think it's over 30 or 40,000 cubic compared to 2021. And basically we have been meeting with the stakeholders to ensure that production is increased to meet the local demand. Because with the infrastructure boom that is happening in our country, and the housing drive that is happening too, demand will increase for local building material. So we've been working with the stakeholders in the forestry sector to ensure that they produce more, without breaching any of the regulation in terms of climate change, in terms of the Paris Club Agreement, in terms of our LCDS. And our LCDS speaks to sustainable, responsible logging activity. And that is what the Forestry Commission is committed to, keeping deforestation rate at a minimum. Probably we have one of the lowest deforestation rate in the world. And if I may boast too, we have one of the best forest management system in the world too. We don't do clear felling, it's selective felling. It's being monitored, and we have stations, we have about 30 stations throughout the country with officers who monitor logging activities, because we are serious about helping the world to manage climate change. We're serious about keeping our forests intact to ensure that we become the lungs of the world, and we are rewarded for it too. So we have to ensure that we're managing. We have managed to keep our deforestation rate to below 0.05%. And we are allowed to cut 1 million cubic per year. We have never reached 500,000 as yet. So it's not that we are breaching any of the regulation or we are going against our own policy, but there is some amount of scope for increase in production. What we are encouraging the operators to do, the stakeholders to do, is to move towards downstream activities, move towards processing, stop exporting logs, export wood products, export lumber. You make more money, simple as that. So we have to move towards just exporting logs all the time. In that way, our operators can cut less trees and make more money. The business can be actually more profitable with less harvesting. And that is what we want. That is direction in which the Forestry Commission will have to go. Because we are serious about preserving our forests, keeping our forests intact. So at some point in time, we will have to move towards downstreaming processing activities, which will keep the sector viable and also assist with less harvesting at the same time.
And I said it would be remiss of us to talk about these sectors and not mention the gold sector
Mm.
as well. Uh, it is it has been reported in many sections of the society and the public that there's been a vast interest in investments in the gold industry. Can you give us an update as it relates to that, and what benefits are there that can come out of that gold industry there?
Yeah, as you know, Guyana is one of the countries in South America that mining plays a key part in our economy. Mining employs a large amount of Guyanese. Mining and logging put together employs maybe directly 50,000 Guyanese, indirectly over 100,000. So it is important to us, it is important to our economy, important to our people. We have been supporting, before I go to the large scale, we have been supporting the small, medium scale mining because small, medium scale mining is reserved for Guyanese and Guyanese businesses. We have given a number of concessions since we took office. VAT off machinery, VAT off equipment, duty and VAT off ATV, reduce duty and removal of tax on 4x4, the removal of the 10% 10% tax recently from miners. And there's so many no tax on fuel, and there's so many other concessions that we would have given to the mining sector so that the small and medium scale miners can continue to grow because those are, as I mentioned, those areas are carved out for Guyanese businesses, Guyanese only. So we need to continue supporting our small and medium scale miners. We've been spending billions of dollars in hinterland infrastructure to ensure that lands are accessible, roads are in good condition, so they can get fuel in and get the produce out, whether it's logging, mining, whatever the case is, whether it's not only gold mining, but quarry, but sand, bauxite, and all other mining activities that we're involving. Coming to the large scale mining, as you know, we have two large scale gold mining companies in Guyana, Troy Resources and Xinjiang. Both companies are now going into underground mining. This is a forest for Guyana. So at GGMC, we are building capacity to ensure that we can monitor underground mining, especially in terms of safety, safety of workers, and environmental impact as well too. Um, and yes, you're right. There are a number of companies that are expressing interest, and some already here doing some amount of work, exploration activities in Guyana. Recently, I attended PDAC, the largest mining conference in the world in Canada, and there was so much interest paid in Guyana by large companies, and large companies such as Barrick Gold. Barrick Gold is probably one of the largest gold mining company in the world, and I'm happy to say they're already in Guyana. They're already doing exploration and activities in Guyana now. As you know, ETK Grand Columbia is moving towards developing the Torparo mines, something that we've waited a long time for, we as a country. And I think it's time that we develop that into an actual mines where we can produce not only gold but copper as well too. There are a number of other companies. OMI is continuing exploration activities also. In Marudi Mountain, they're doing exploration activities, and I just want to stress on that because there's some misconception that the large companies doing mining in Marudi. That's not true. A prospecting license was issued to the company, and they're doing prospecting. So far, we've had good results from those exploration activities. A number of companies have made significant discoveries, and we're hoping that there's another one that we call OCO in the Cuyuni area. They too have made a significant discovery there. So we are working with these companies now to move from discovery, move from exploration to production, because that is what we want as a country in a sustainable, responsible manner. Because of course our environment is key, and we have to balance the exploration and production of natural resources with the protection and conservation of our environment. That is our key objective, because as I know we've heard comments about leaving the oil in the ground, leaving natural resources where it is, but we want to say that as a country we need our natural resources because our people deserve a better life. Our people deserve forest water facilities too. But how are we going to get that? We need to produce, we need to extract our natural resources. But what we're committed to is ensuring that the environment is protected, there is minimal damages, and work is done to do reclamation, reforestation, and we, as a matter of fact, we're going to start a few projects like that, especially in the minute areas. We're going to start some reclamation, reforestation. In some areas, we're going to do afforestation to ensure that our environment is intact, our forest intact, because that is important, equally important as the extraction of natural resources.
And so finally, as we conclude our conversation, it is important for me to ask you, can you describe the government's vision for the overall development of not just the productive sector, but for the development of Guyana as a whole?
I want to start my answer to that question with the slogan that our president is advocating for, one Guyana. That is what we want, one Guyana. And every time our president speaks, or prime minister, or vice president, or any minister speaks, the one thing that is common, well, there are many more, but the one thing that is common in all of us is that we are going to ensure that we manage the resources and ensure that we have programs and policies in this country that will benefit every single Guyanese. Whether you live in the Northwest, whether you live in Rupununi, you live in Quarantine, you live in Linden, you live on the East Coast, you live on the East Bank, our policies are designed to ensure that every single Guyanese benefit, because this country belongs to all of us. We are entrusted by the people of this country to manage the country so that everyone can benefit from it and its resources. And that is exactly what we are committed to doing. So I just want to reassure all Guyanese that our commitment is to all Guyanese, and not only a section of the population, or not only for the people who are our supporters, but when we're in government, we have to ensure that we manage to ensure that every single Guyanese benefits. And that's a commitment that we're going to take seriously.
Minister Bharrat, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us, this brief discussion on this program. This has been The Journey to Prosperity for All. I'm your host, Shaquan Gill, saying goodbye for now.